Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're looking at Out of Captivity based on Luke chapter 4, verse 18, where Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He has anointed me to release the captive." Now, that is to bring them into liberty. Jesus' exact words were to proclaim liberty to the captives. And we've talked about how we need to understand that we are captive before you can get out of captivity. You know, you've got to realize you're in a cage before you can get out of the cage. Otherwise, you just stay in the cage and not even know that you're a captive. But we're talking about this week about the three identities or three ways we come into captivity. Number one is forced captivity, where a foreign country invades you and takes your population under control, and they say, you will be our servants, you will be our slaves, and we're going to be your masters, and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of easy to understand. It's what Germany did with France and Belgium and Luxembourg, and what they did to Spain. It's like, you will serve us. What the tyrants tried to do in Italy, an outsider came in, although he was Italian, but an outsider politically and philosophically came in and said, we will dominate you and you will do what we tell you to do. That's an outsider coming in. The second method that we come into captivity, and I believe there's three basic methods, is a survival captivity. And this affects a lot of people. They are forced by necessity to sell themselves for survival or protection. In other words, if people come and say, well, you convert to Christianity or convert to Islam or we'll kill you, because this is going on right now. Today it's going on. You convert to Islam or we're going to kill you and your family and your whole household. And so that's kind of a survival captivity. What do I do? If I want to live, if I value this life more than I value God, then I will convert and I will be whatever you want me to be. You lose your identity, as we were talking about yesterday. You give that up. You sacrifice that just for the sake of survival. We see this in times of crisis, not just in that desperate type of situation, but we see it in times of crisis, such as the invasion in Ukraine, where a lot of Ukrainians will just say, okay, Russia, I don't want to be killed. I don't want my city bombed. We'll just do whatever you want us to do. And they just surrender themselves. We see it in times of famine, where when people are hungry, they will sell themselves. They will become servants. They will literally sell themselves into slavery in order to get food to eat because they don't want to die. And I don't know how you deal with that, but it goes on. Or how about times of mass migration, like the U.S. southern border? People are selling themselves to get across the border. They're selling their children to get across the border. They're selling their kids into slavery, into sex trade. And I'll tell you, the modern sex trade today, or human trafficking as they call it, is slavery. It's the modern day version of slavery. You know, we condemn the old fashioned kind of slavery, but human trafficking is slavery. And you know, I don't hear the people that are opposed to slavery being opposed to human trafficking. Oh, they may dislike it, but I don't hear them. If you want to go on a crusade against slavery, stop the sex trafficking, stop the human trafficking, not only in the United States, but around the world. And I don't hear them doing it. So to me, that just means they're a fraud, they're a fake. They're really not serious about this. They're just trying to coerce people to their point of view. But these people will sell themselves, their bodies, their children, their family, their property, everything, just to get to survive. And I think this is a normal way, or a very common way, that people go into slavery. They'll do it in Egypt you can see it back in the time of Joseph, where there was a famine on the land, and Joseph prophesied and said, well, you're going to have 7 good years and 7 bad years. He says, store up the grain in the 7 good years, and in the 7 bad years, then you'll have food to prosper and to not die. And so the Pharaoh listened to him, and that's how the Pharaoh gained power in Egypt. I believe this because the Bible tells us that people sold their property, they sold their animals to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh let them keep it as long as they would farm it for Pharaoh in order to get food to live. It was a choice of either I sell my property or I die. And then it got to the point of where they had to sell their family, had to sell their children to be the wards of Pharaoh and the servants of Pharaoh and to serve in the military and to build the pyramids and all this kind of stuff, because if you didn't do it, you were going to starve to death. It wasn't forced, but they did it because they had to survive. And that's a tough choice for anyone to have to make. And I don't want to see people have to make that choice, but sometimes people have to make that choice. So you've got to decide whether how dear and precious your liberty is, or be sold or sell yourself into captivity. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.